Wrong button. Hey everybody, all my seahorse and reefy peoples. Welcome to Wine Wednesday. We're doing yet another open chat because Kelly has been so crazy trying to get this website done that... Hey everybody! Oh, and Kelly or somebody else needs to mute our... Welcome to Wine Wednesday. We're doing yet another...
No, it's not me.
Kelly. It was Kelly. It was me. Ray, make sure you got the YouTube muted.
I gotta figure out how to mute this.
Remember, just left click and mute. Anyhow, welcome to everyone to Wine Wednesday. We are starting up the interviews again, as I've said. And to anyone, including Ray, who had signed up for the link every week, I truly apologize. I've gotten quite a few messages about the website in this past week, people trying to join, hey, Tina's Reef, hey, everybody, I'll put a link up in just a second. But I just wanted to give a public apology to Ray and everybody else who has signed up for the weekly link and hasn't gotten it. If you go to the website, it's in shambles, and that's because I have a very, very cool, exciting new website, almost done, that you guys can't see yet. So there's nothing I can say aside from I'm sorry, and please bear with me, because when you see the guides and the exciting things that I've got coming out on the website, you're going to be glad you stuck around. And for YouTube folks, the videos that I've been promising that just don't seem to come are coming. If you ask my children or significant other, I've done nothing for weeks besides work on this stupid website and make videos so that I could get caught up. So apologies, but we're going to get back on track right now. But today's going to be open because, I'm not there yet. So welcome, Ray. Welcome, Lucy. I will put a link up if anybody wants to join. Ray, what's going on with you?
Oh, nothing much. Just getting older.
Getting older. Come on now.
Every day I'm another day older.
Well,
can't figure out how it happens.
Well, what's going on with your seahorses? Tell me that.
Oh, nothing. They're just exactly the same.
Are you still? Go ahead.
The only problems I had a long time ago with the abs when I screwed up and tried to extend the cleaning, and I told you about that. I was tube feeding there for a bit. I forget now, about 3 weeks I think I was tube feeding. But other than that,
didn't you figure out that it wasn't good? It didn't work out?
What, the tube feeding?
Right.
Well, I didn't seem to have much luck, so I just went back to feeding them the live food again for a while, and then I also went. I bought some frozen brine shrimp, and I don't know whether it's a combination of things, but just all of a sudden they started eating again, and I was able to quit doing the tube feeding, and now they're back to normal. When I put food in now, I broadcast feed, and I put the food in the tanks now, and usually 4 of the 5 are out there for it right away. But there's always one that I never seem to be able to find. But I feed 4 times a day, and I make sure that at some point in time, and each day, I've seen all 5 of them just to make sure.
Gotcha. Hey, I want to mention. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I might not see all 5 at any given time out of the 4 times. Well, that's just feeding times, not counting if I go down just to sit and watch. But and especially at feeding time, I don't hang around a lot unless there's something interesting. And so it's often I'm only seeing 3 to 4 of them at a time. But I might see 2 males in the morning and then all 3 females in the next feeding or something. So I know I've seen all 5 that day, even though I don't see them all at once.
Gotcha.
And that's acceptable.
I hear you. You got to go with what is. I've got a few tanks that I have to count the seahorses and find them on a daily. So I hear you. I wanted to say thank you so much, Salty Reef. Yay! I don't know if the little coins worked, but thank you so much for the super chat. We really appreciate it. All of that stuff is going towards helping me fix all of these little minor tweaks. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. You're awesome. And hello to everyone who's with us so far. Joseph, hello again. Tina's Reef, Lucy's here. Anybody who wants to join, I did put the link up. Just opened today. I did my big apology already, so you know. Lucy, anything going on with you tonight? Lucy's muted.
Shows she's muted.
All right, well, Lucy's muted. Looks like it's all on you, Ray. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, the
but
only thing new I had is I had to make a new light for one of the tanks here because what do you call it? The Marineland LED fixture that I bought a few years ago. Only about half the lights are working on it anymore. Now I don't know anything about fixing them, so I bought what you call a corn cob light. I'm not sure if you know that, but it's a light bulb. It has strips of LEDs, and on this particular one, it's a 300 watt equivalent, and there's 4 strips around the light bulb. Well, that doesn't do much good for me for anything with the light bulb, because if I mount it horizontal, only half the light's going downwards, the other half's going up. The reflectors, as far as I'm concerned, aren't very efficient. So I dismantled the light bulb and had to lengthen the wires, but I've got the 4 strips all in a row now, and mounted it in a little top that I made. So it's about 3 inches wide, about 2 inches high, and all the strips are in there, and it lights up the tank just fine now.
Right, and
you
don't have like. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't have what?
I was gonna say you don't have like coral and macros or anything like that, so really you just need light.
There's only leather hand coral and Kenya tree, or Kenya, whatever.
Well, that's really interesting though that you were able to, DIY a light basically that's working. You didn't see the softies, the Kenya tree or the any of the leathers or whatnot. They didn't react to it or anything. They were fine.
Yeah, well, see, the other one, as the lights were burning out, the 2 corals were getting worse and worse, especially the leather hand coral. And it's still not back to the point where the polyps are out now, but the thing has expanded and filled out again with this light on it now. The Kenya tree never showed too much at any time, but when I first put this light on, it did close up for a day. But now it's out and it's doing fine. But it's so much cheaper to buy a light bulb and then make my own fixture for it rather than buying something, especially here in Canada when our prices are so much higher.
Well, first of all, I think you're very smart I love DIY projects, and that's one of the other things I'm still working on is getting that article that you sent me via email, all the information about, because I love hearing about the DIY projects, and they're definitely something that should be shared because people don't realize that they can do it so much easier. I want to say very quickly, thank you, Dan Underwood. Apparently he's apologizing for not being here. But no, thank you so much for the super chat, Sir Dan. We appreciate it, and it's helping us, get things back in order on the old website and get this going a little bit better. So we really appreciate it. Thank you, Dan Underwood, for the super chat. If anyone wants to know what I'm talking about, I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it, but because the channel has grown, you are able to give a super chat in the comments. Basically, it's like just giving a little donation saying we like what we're seeing, or we appreciate you doing this, or here's to help kind of thing. Especially when I have guests on, it'd be really cool to see, that you appreciate the guests, that kind of thing. It's not required at all. Please don't think it's required, but I just wanted to explain what I was talking about, and let you guys know that all of anything like that goes into a fund to better the website and the experience here. So thank you. And sorry, Ray, for interrupting yet again. But what else? What else we got going on, guys? Hey, K-Town, nice to see ya. I think I already put the link up, but let me know if anybody needs it. In my background, you guys, you can see my beautiful, awesome seahorse design. I'm going to go ahead and take it down because I meant to show you guys the other week and I didn't get to. This is literally made, let me see if I can get it right, all of wine corks and a few other materials. Speaking of DIY, I found a really great artist on Instagram, whom I may or may not be related to, but she makes amazing, amazing artwork. Anything you could possibly want, she can make it out of wine corks. I mean, literally, these are wine corks. It's really cool. And so I'll put that back up later. But just wanted to show you guys because I didn't the other week. And one more wine thing, Ray, before I get back on topic, which is seahorses, sorry. But I was introduced to this bread and butter Pinot Noir. Not expensive, and I absolutely love it. You guys know that I'm not great with the technical terms, but I can tell you it's just got a very unique flavor that's not really strong and oaky and winey. My descriptions are never very good, but it's very good wine. I suggest trying it for sure. And now I'm done with all the endless chit-chat. Back to seahorses. And in the...
Well, I wouldn't know what you're talking about when you talk about wine anyway.
You don't like any wine at all?
Well, first of all, I'm an alcoholic and I don't drink, but when I did drink, I never ever drank wine.
Well, we'll keep you away from wine. We'll keep you around, Ray, and you can just drink soda. Do you drink soda?
About the only wine I tolerated when I was young was the soda pop ones like Baby Bear and Baby Duck.
Gotcha. Well,
I don't know if they're still around or not.
I'll tell you, that's one of the very interesting things that's come of Wine Wednesday, is that I started off without a real goal in mind. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. And I knew I really wanted to learn about wine, and I really wanted to provide a place where seahorse people and reef people could come and chat every Wednesday. And so I kind of threw it together. But through this, I used to be the kind of person you're talking about, or that you are. I'm not going to claim that alcoholic term. I just won't. But I used to not care for wine, and the more that I've gotten suggestions from people in the audience, or the more that people have come on and told me what they were drinking, and I've tried it. I try something new every week, and I really have found some that I really like exceptionally well, especially like with certain foods, or with my sister's trick is she loves pepper jack cheese with the like the Cabernets. Anyways, there's all these. It's a whole other world that is just really cool, and I try to kind of bring it in a little bit because someday I'd like to do more with the wine part, but I don't mean to get so off topic because this is Seahorse. So back to no side jobs, Dan said. Oh, he wasn't talking to me, but I'm still going to take the hint. No side jobs right now. But anyhow, so I'll stop rambling. Back to seahorses. Have you seen anything new going on in your area, Ray? Like, have you seen any new breeders popping up? Here in the U.S., we've got new seahorse breeders popping up all over. I just wondered if...
Very little around here. As a matter of fact, as far as seahorse keepers now, there's really only two of us. The other one's about 50 kilometers away from me. And she just has two left now, ones that she picked up about 5 years ago from someone that I had sold some to when I imported a shipment of Erectus from, can't think of the name now. It was a Florida place, Beth, that went out of business.
Beth,
Seahorse
right.
Corral.
Yeah. Right. I know who you're talking about.
But she still has two left, and she's not interested in getting back into it anyway now that she's a grandmother and she retired, and she's just enjoying being able to travel and get around so much, and she finds the seahorses tie her down too much.
Right.
But that's nothing.
Go ahead.
I just don't know.
It's a lot of work. I was telling them on last week's Wine Wednesday, I mentioned that my seahorses, I purposefully, did things like lower the temperature and just certain things to try to make them not breed because I would just have so much on my plate. And the other week, or like last week, they gave me a batch anyways. And I felt the same way probably Beth does. I was just like, this is cool. Of course I'm going to raise them, but oh man, it's a lot of work. Hats off to breeders. Whew, it's more
I
than
never did find out why she quit, but
you never did
it was a
find out
good
why she quit?
no.
Hmm.
But it was good for me at the time there because I couldn't get anything here in Canada, and so I shipped in 100 from Florida there that she sent me up. She had the permits for the CITES permits and that, so that worked out fine for me and for a lot of other people that I sold the ones that I didn't want. I certainly didn't need all 100 for myself.
Right. I'm curious.
But,
I'm curious. When you got the 100 in, did you just buy them outright, or are you saying that you did a group buy? Did you get other people involved first?
I bought them, and then I went down to the airport in Toronto, picked them up, and then I went to a friend that I met through the seahorse hobby, and I stayed overnight there. And people came to his house there and picked up what they had ordered. And but there was still about 22, I think, that hadn't sold because I was only keeping 6 for myself. I sold some to Seahorse Canada for a girl that was involved with the Seahorse Canada, and these 22 that were left over, I took them and sold them to a store in one of the suburbs of Toronto. Wasn't very far away, and he's now gone out of business. But at the time, he was the best for anything around to supply a decent seahorse. So I didn't mind selling them to him because I knew he kept them separate. Wasn't going to load them up with another tank. But now the only source I have is Australia, and that's a lot more expensive there.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Australia. That's what one of the reasons that I was asking is, Ray, one of the things that I'm doing with the website is I've already very clearly said that breeding's too much for my plate, but I happen to know the good breeders, and because of my experience, I know, well, I could have my opinions anyways. I feel that I know who does the best job with things and who the good suppliers are. And so one of the things I'm doing with the website is setting it up to basically so that people can buy anything and everything they need for a seahorse tank, including the seahorses on the website. And so that will be
doesn't work for us here in Canada.
It doesn't?
No, because nobody in the U.S. now has CITES paperwork to ship to Canada.
Well,
you can't ship here without CITES.
Right. I do understand that. But I'm actually talking with a lot. I've been talking a lot with Seahorse World, Seahorse Australia, with the owner, because number one, she's a female and she's awesome. And I'm writing about females in reef keeping, and so there's number one. Number two, because I want to understand this and see if it's something that, I could maybe not get done myself, but get done through other channels. And, there's 3, 4, and 5 that I'm not telling you guys yet. But bottom line is I'm looking at all of these things. I know you're right, but let's not say never until we figure. Let's not say never. We'll see.
See, for Dan, Dan says he can sell all he has, so it's not worth it to him to, invest in the CITES paperwork and go through all the hassle, because you have to have vet come out, checked, and so on before you can ship.
Right.
All the things involved, it would just make it, he would have to ask too much to make it worth his while, so that would put the price out of range of people.
Right. I understand. But when you're talking, like for instance, with Seahorse Australia, you said that their pricing is not what you'd like to see. Well, if there was some sort of group buy, you know, the higher the number, the lower the price. So I don't know. Just I'm looking at these things too. Is all I'm trying to say. I understand
Yeah.
what your frustration.
Well, I tried to do group buy up here in Canada, and it didn't work out. I went on a Toronto site, that a forum in Toronto, that that's the highest population density in Canada, and I didn't get any takers there. So I just finally said, "The hell with it." Went and ordered 14, and I could have ordered 100 for the same shipping price.
Now I have one more question. Well, first I want to say hi, Rip. Glad to see you. Feel free to join if you'd like. If you've got anything, any updates to tell us about. Unfortunately, I haven't been on YouTube. I've been crazy trying to finish the website. So if you've got any stories to tell us about what's going on with your reef tank, any of your creatures, hop in. Feel free. Anybody who joins is welcome. And then Ray, I'm curious. What do seahorses typically go for in Canada? Like, I'm not trying to ask your specific selling price, but
yeah, the Asian imports around here will usually sell for between $65 and $80. We don't see many of them anymore. I think enough people have tried them and failed at it, that word kind of got around, and so there's very few brought in anymore. The Big L store here in London might get some in maybe once or twice a year, and that's about it.
Right. Same here. A lot of the articles focusing on buy captive bred, buy captive bred. Well, most of them are now, you know. I mean, at least that's one really positive thing I can say about the hobby in general, is that it's stepped up and everyone cares about sustainability now. Everyone cares about captive bred now. So, you know, captive breeding is a big deal.
The stores will bring Asian imports, and they'll call them captive bred. Well, they could call them tank raised, because they're raising them in great big huge cement tanks. They're piping ocean water into it, and they send them over here. And the only difference between them and wild caught, in my opinion, is that they're trained to eat frozen. They don't filter their water. It just comes in, and it's not really any different. But the store will sell them as captive bred.
Right. I mean, it is a huge problem still. I agree. That's kind of why I was hinting around about my personal website, the Seahorse Whisperer Society, not mine, Lucy and I's website, that we will only supply captive bred seahorses from reputable breeders because of that exact problem. But, you know, it's just so hard to tell anymore. I don't know. I don't know. Like, how could you possibly know when a large conglomerate, I can't think of the right word, a large website says captive bred? There's no way to know if they're importing them and they're not. There's no way to know the conditions. I don't know. It's just, I really did try to travel down that road and research and try to find answers. And it's just, it's bigger than me. Put it that way. It's bigger than me. Seahorse trade is huge, and trying to figure out all the ins and outs is really complicated. But at what's your basis? Everything you're saying, what it boils down to is everybody is always going to be better off buying from a breeder. Bottom line, that's it. Or a site that sells only breeder. I'm sorry?
Buying from another hobbyist is probably the best way in Canada here, except that now that I'm not breeding and Yvette's not breeding them anymore, I don't know of anyone here in Canada other than Seahorse Canada, and they're in the Toronto area there, and they're still putting out, but they don't want to deal with an individual. They'll sell them to the stores, and I'm not so sure that the stores are keeping systems that are
Right.
separate from
See,
the rest of
that
their fish.
not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but that's exactly what I mean. Is it's a slippery slope. Once you start
Yeah,
saying that their water quality is not good enough, then how do you determine the water quality here? I really, really researched this and decided to back off because and just say buy from a breeder. Bottom line, because you're better off. Just to answer a question in the comments, war is hell. Don't filter the water. I'm genuinely confused now. Captive bred seahorses are 100% better to buy. A plus, absolutely, you're right. That's what he was actually saying. What Ray was talking about is a problem that's not so much, it's not so much of a problem currently, but it was a problem in the past, is that um, imported seahorses would be imported and sold as captive bred because they were trained onto frozen foods, but they were still being bred in the ocean in pens and not in filter, in the ocean in pens where they weren't, filtering water, or it was literally still in the ocean with all of the problems that come along with that. So that's what he was talking about. We definitely agree that captive bred seahorses from a breeder are the way to go.
they
Absolutely.
actually progressed onward from the pen. They were built these big cement round vats, and they were breeding them on land, just piping the ocean water into them.
Right.
And so that was supposed to be progress. But then again, the water goes through there and goes back out in the ocean. Meanwhile, the ocean water is still bringing in the pathogens that are the wild caught would normally have. And then I worry more about when they put the water back out again, that it's taken something out there that
Right.
can endanger the wildlife in the ocean due to something that's happened on shore.
Right. I know, I couldn't agree more. There's a time and a place for everything. Like I really feel like I'm sorry. I really feel like the reason that I have completely changed my outlook on this is because I did a lot of research into the pay into the research done by the Florida. I can't think of the exact name now, but the Florida um, technology thing. That doesn't help very much, does it? Florida Institute of Science or something like that. Anyhow, they did a lot of studies with seahorses, and they were using recirculating systems. Dan himself has said that if he could figure out a way to do that and actually sterilize it and stuff, I mean, that is the easiest way. And so, not and don't misquote me. I'm not saying he said he would do that or will do that. I'm just saying it would be the easiest way. Um, there are problems when it comes to a captive, a completely sterile environment too. And I don't know. I know I got to rambling, but my point was that there's a time and a place for everything. Like for traditional Chinese medicine, those recirculating systems with the pens or not, where they're maybe indoors but they're recirculating, or tubs, vats, blah blah blah. That's actually a positive thing because then they're not taking from the wild, and so to put it down is not really cool. But for our place where we're at right now with hobbyists, the bottom line is captive bred. Captive bred from a breeder. I get myself in these tangled messes when I start talking, so I'm going to stop. But you see what I'm saying, Ray? Like
Yep.
there's a time and a place for everything. There's a good way to do things, and it's not my place to tell anybody else how to. Um, but for a hobbyist, the bottom line is buy from a breeder, captive bred all the way. Um, and Dan said some major typhoons wiped out many of the net pen breeders. That's why we're not seeing as many. Right. That, economy plays a part. Trade in general plays a part. All the regulations play a part. And so I think we're in a much better situation today than we were. But Ray, you being in Canada, that kind of, sets you on an island by yourself. You poor thing. And I'm curious,
Well, at
has
least we have a reader here that's concerned about the environment.
that's good. That's I'm so glad. And Ray, has the demand for seahorses gone down? Like in your, I mean, do you get
Yeah,
what?
there isn't much demand. I get a few requests every now and then, but nothing like I used to get.
Hmm. Any thoughts to why that is?
Not really, other than there isn't much exposure anymore. Like at one time, there was so many Asian imports being brought in um, that a lot of people would see them when they go to the pet stores. Um, but over the years, basically, uh, very, very few people ever succeeded in keeping them alive. And I think eventually enough people going into a store that had tried it uh, realized they couldn't do it anymore. They might have tried it a few times and then they stopped doing it. So the stores end up cutting back on bringing them in,
Right.
which is probably a good thing. They
Right.
can't keep them alive anyway.
Right.
And I think that's part of it.
No, you're absolutely
Um,
right. I mean, again, just
people,
reiterating what we're saying is for hobbyists, your best bet, and the stores have caught on to that though. So I don't mean to imply at all that, if you go to a store, you're going to get, some Asian import. That's not even true anymore, hardly. Most of the stores care. My local stores, I, helped in educating them and they were already on the right path. The hobby cares about sustainability now, definitely. And so, I think things are a lot different now and better. But if you're going to ask my opinion, I'm always going to tell you to buy from a breeder or buy from the Seahorse Whisperer Society, who will be providing only captive bred seahorses from breeders. Because there are terrific breeders like Cheryl Taylor, who aren't well known. She's an excellent breeder. She's right, right. She was taught by Dan. Seahorse Savvy is excellent. There's a lot of excellence. Someone in the audience, John Gale, asked, do I like Ocean Rider Seahorse Farms in Hawaii? Um,
hell of a price.
Ocean Rider, I believe, I shouldn't speak, my thoughts, my opinion on Ocean Rider is that they concentrate a lot more now on tours and things. I could be wrong. I know that they still sell, but I also know that they very recently revamped their website. I know that because I was a member. I was certified by Pete, as a seahorse person many years ago. And his whole certification and the cool things that were going on are kind of no longer there. And so I don't know what's really going on with them personally, but I have ordered from Ocean Rider, and I can say on a positive note that they have exceptional customer service. I actually had an extremely bad experience. You got to figure when the longer the supply chain, the worse off you are. The longer the travel distance, the more chance there is for something to go wrong. Now, good breeders and good facilities know that, and they'll take precautions. But sometimes, things just happen. And so my first experience with Ocean Rider, my seahorses were not alive when I got them. But they quickly made that right. And, I still have the seahorses. And so, I don't have anything bad to say about them. They have exceptional customer service. The second time was perfect. I've heard a lot of complaints about them. I don't know how they raise the seahorses. I'm not familiar enough to speak to that. But I know I personally will continue to recommend that you buy from a breeding facility locally. Can I leave it there? I don't. I'm so torn on that one because I know, a lot of people really, really like Ocean Rider and a lot of people really, really don't. And I just honestly don't have enough information to give you a valid opinion other than they made things right with me. That's all I got. So, and War as Hell asked, what species do they breed and sell? Which place do you mean? Typically, the breeder or store will list the species that they have available in stock at the time on their websites. And I think one of the things that started this conversation with Ray and I is that, you know, Erectus, at least in the U.S., Erectus are the most Hippocampus erectus are the most commonly bred seahorses, easiest to take care of. I've got lots of articles about why, and you know, they just are. But it'd be nice to get in some different species for those who have mastered caring for Erectus and want to try something, you know, want different species. Now, Seahorse Savvy and Seahorse Source both bring in new species all the time and are having success. I think Seahorse Source has Cuda right now, and of course Piebalds, which are Erectus, and then Seahorse Savvy has Reed-eye. I think, I could be wrong, maybe hybrids. I don't know. You have to check their websites honestly at this point. But and I think Lucy left us. But anyways, you know, you have to check the websites, but they do. The cool thing about, okay, I'm going to say this really quick. The really cool thing about, and the reason why I suggest buying from a breeder, is that the breeder typically doesn't just get them in and sell them. Sometimes they do, if they, through their experience, decide that they are of high enough quality and that they are captive bred, and you know they have ways of knowing these things, then they might just sell them. But most of the time, they'll condition the seahorses as broodstock. They breed those seahorses and sell the offspring. So you're getting truly, truly, truly captive bred seahorses that are used to aquariums, used to eating frozen foods, bred in sterile conditions. I mean, there's just, you know, once the website's done, there will be all this information up there telling you why buy captive bred. But that's the whole deal. When you buy from a breeder, it's not someone just turning them around. They're actually taking the time to breed them. And Ray is a breeder in Canada, and so, yay, Ray, we love you. What?
I've aged out too much now.
Hey, what? We got to find somebody to get out there and help you, man. But
well, something. I'm at the moment. I'm on the YouTube page here, reading some of the remarks here. John Gale says something about Hawaii is a far place to ship from. Seahorses in bags a long time. Well, I ordered my abs of my barbs from Australia to here in Canada. They were 2 days shipping, and it's no problem. And I'm sure there's no problem shipping from Hawaii to mainland.
Well, the difference, Ray, though, is who's shipping them. And I don't know the methods, so I can't speak to it. But there's tricks. What?
He's talking about Ocean Rider, I believe.
I know he was, but I'm just saying you're talking about Australia, and Seahorse Australia. They have been doing this and doing this well, so well that they're you know in charge of helping endangered species and caring for endangered species and shipping, exporting, and importing all over the world. They're responsible for these things, so they have knowledge, experience, and know-how. I'm not saying Ocean Rider doesn't. They do, I'm sure, too. But just, you know, anybody might not. And Dan mentioned that Seahorse Source currently is working on Cuda, Combs, and Reed-eye. And so that's what I mean by when you hear a breeder say that, that means that they're actually taking the time to raise seahorses from fry for the hobby. That's true captive breeding right there in its essence. You know what I'm saying? I mean, nothing against the stores. I'm going to be a store. Nothing against me, you know. But the breeders really work harder than we could ever imagine. And I can vouch for that.
Now, so I'll be gone for a bit.
Okay, go ahead, Ray. I'm probably not going to go too much longer unless anybody wants to jump in. If anybody, I'll put the link up again. I know somebody said they were having trouble with the link. Apologies on that. And Salty Reef said he is interested in the Captive Bread Kelly says so. That's right. Captive Bread Kelly said so. But you're interested in the dwarfs, you said? I don't know. I lost where it said it. I'm sorry. The comments kind of got wanky for a minute. Rip mentioned, yes, check all their YouTube pages of these different breeders and sites and such. And of course, they have online websites, all of them, for you to get the information. And War is Hell, you say Redeye and Kuda are some of your favorites. I'm curious as to why. Even if you don't want to jump into the link, comment again. I want to know why you like them the best. I'll tell you, my favorite species is Barbori. They're not the easiest at all to keep. And you won't find them very often because they're not the easiest to keep. Their breeding cycles are different. They aren't as easy, you know, to get them to breed and then to raise them and blah, blah, blah. But I just love them because they're more, they look more like seahorses to me. And I know that sounds silly, but they just, their spikiness, their, I don't know, they just, their delicateness, they remind me more of the magical, you know, mythological seahorse creature, whatever. So I like the Barbori as far as a particular species that I like to keep. Again, just for the record, as far as hobbyists, first starting out, you should always, at least in the U.S., go for Hippocampus erectus, is my opinion. Or, you know, if you have a local breeder that is exceptional and they have a certain species that, you know, then go with that. And War is Hell said Hippocampus and abdominalis are amazing. You find them there in Tasmania, and they are awesome. You find them? Oh, man, I'm so jealous. I so want to get out and actually find seahorses and dive and see the seahorses in their natural habitat. Some of the series that I have been working on for videos and articles have to do with, you know, conservation and that kind of thing. And I just would love, I wish I could go out there and man, I'm jealous. I wish I could go see seahorses, you know, right there. That'd be so cool. Even Lucy and Dan get to go out and see seahorses. It's really not fair. I'm really thinking I should move. But anyhow, anything else? Tina, excuse me, my throat's messed up now. Okay, well, Tina, I did want to say that way earlier in the chat, I noticed you said you were painting something. I know you do all of these creative, artistic things, and if you're still here, I want to know what you're painting because I missed it. I know you do work with the dolls, and you mentioned it when I was talking about my corked, beautiful artwork right there, and you said it was a beautiful piece, and you said that you were painting something. I'd love to hear more about it. I didn't mean to gloss over it. Apologies. And don't have to dive to collect seahorses. I know Rip Van Winkle pointed out that seahorses can be collected in the shallow water. Right, I know. I just mean that I honestly, after talking to Graham Short, the ichthyologist who came on Wine Wednesday and talked about finding Hippocampus japapigu, I want to go out there and find new species. I really do. I want to. I can see myself, I can envision myself diving and finding them, and I wouldn't know what to do with them. I'm not an ichthyologist, but man, ugh. And War is Hell also said, don't need to even dive to see them. Around the clock pools and boat jetties when you're fishing, just chilling in the water. Guys, I'm curious. Either one of you that want to message me, or if you want to comment while we're still live, I want to know what the regulations are in Tasmania, specifically. Because, well, it's research for an article, and also I'm just curious because, as I told Ray earlier, I've been really researching the trade of seahorses and how complex and complicated it gets when you've got different guidelines in different areas, different places respect different regulations, so on and so forth. So just curious what the regulations are in your area. In fact, I'm going to say this to the camera. Anyone who sees this live stream, if you live in an area that has different regulations or where things are done differently, I'm the last person to judge you. I just want to know. I want to learn about it. I want to be educated about it. So please feel free to message me. It's Seahorse Whisperer Society on Facebook, or you can message me at Kelly, Kelly, at seahorsewhisperer.com is my email. And of course, the website's not up and running yet. Well, so don't go there yet. But I would love to hear, or in a YouTube comment, please let me know what the regulations are like for you. In the Philippines, there aren't any regulations for seahorses. And Rip, we need to talk. Do I have your number? I need you to message me, okay? And Tasmania, they're protected. You need permits to collect them. Same for sea dragons, right? I assumed that. But I'm very curious about the Philippines, Rip. So I would love to talk to you one-on-one. If you can, trying to think of the best way to give you my information since you didn't join tonight. Just if you can message me on the side, do so. I'll find a way to contact you if not. And because I would really like to know, what's interesting to me is that you say there's no regulations, but it very much seems to me like you have a lot of respect for seahorses. You talk about them in a way that makes me think that they are not mistreated in your area. And I've done some reading about the Philippines, and they were one of the first, a long time ago, to put out research articles and information having to do with breeding them successfully. So, is your email working now? Yes, Kelly at seahorsewhisperer.com will work. Yes. And I just got a ding, so I'm guessing that was you. So I'll message you afterwards, but I'll send you a more easier way to talk. But yes, so I would love to hear from anyone with information about how your area deals with regulations and just the feel for seahorses and cygnathids. I can't even talk. Cygnathids in general, how they're thought of, how they're treated, if the regulations are followed, that kind of thing. I would love any information. Please send it my way. And I did see Warshell said something. I'm sorry I missed it. I'll go back and read it, and if you said something, I'll respond. But instead of continuing to talk to myself, since Ray is still busy and Lucy. Oh, hi Ray. Okay.
I just sit here listening to you.
Oh, okay. I was just rambling on and on.
I heard you talking about the abs. I was talking about the barbs.
Right.
I was feeding my barbs while you were sitting there talking about how nice they were.
I know. In addition to finding you some help, I'm going to find you some camera help so we can get a camera on those beautiful barbs. But how many do you have now in total?
There's 6 barbs and 5 abs.
Wow.
But the abs are in a 90-gallon tank downstairs.
Right.
Because I have to keep them cold.
Right. That's what I was going to say, too, to War as Hell, is that, you know, with the abdominalis, they're awesome. And I've heard from many breeders that they're honestly the easiest to, you know, to keep and breed, except for that temperature thing. That's the one reason I've never tried them, is because you've got to keep the temperature so low for them that it wasn't. Yeah.
But the big advantage is with the low temperatures, I don't have any bacterial problems.
Right. I mean, I get it. I just, I don't have the equipment currently.
I'm too cheap to spend money on what they call those tank coolers or chillers or whatever.
Chillers.
So I bought a $50 used air conditioner off Kijiji, and I set it up downstairs. It's the tank basically is walled off with heavy construction plastic, and the air conditioner just sits there and keeps that area cool. And the area's, the whole area's got enough for the tank and the sumps and a tank for when the fry were coming, and room for a couple more 25-gallon Rubbermaid containers that I have the water in for doing the water changes, and also room for me to sit and watch them. And for a $50 expenditure, heck of a lot cheaper than buying one of those coolers, especially for a 90-gallon tank.
Right. No, I mean that's a really smart idea. I would just personally be pretty worried about, I don't know. Do you use any temperature controller like
Nope.
Okay, because I actually did a product
Well,
review video that I still haven't gotten done, but it's of a controller that actually monitors and alerts you if the temperature falls below a certain amount or goes above. I mean, those things are pretty cool because I'd be pretty nervous. Um, I think it's awesome that you were able to rig it up and make it work, but man, I'd be pretty nervous. So.
well, for the upstairs here, well, actually, the whole house is controlled with furnace and air. And for my own comfort, I can't stand being hot. So in the summertime, I guess in terms of Fahrenheit, I'd probably sit with it about in the 68 to 72 range. So I don't like to get it up over that because then I suffer. And so that helps to keep the tanks in range. Now, in the wintertime, like right now, at midnight, it automatically drops down to 15 centigrade, which, well, I'm not sure just what that is in Fahrenheit, but it'll be down fairly low 60s. And so it'll be down there until at least 10 o'clock in the morning. So I have to have a heater in the tank for that, because that would make the barb tank go through too big of a temperature swing.
Right.
But it'll go back up to 68 to 70 degrees after 10 o'clock and stay that way again till midnight.
I mean, I think it's cool.
In the summertime, I don't need a heater in the tank, but it just sits there anyway. Just I can't be bothered taking it out. But it just doesn't come on because in the summertime it doesn't get down to 15.
So you guys, really quickly, I wanted to say, I see some people watching on Facebook. Really sorry, I just noticed that the chat is not even displaying. I'm so sorry. On the video, I mean, apologies for that. So I'm glad there weren't any questions that I missed. If Lucy was in here, she would have caught them, but she's not. So thank goodness that you guys didn't say anything. Sorry about that. Again, for anybody joining now. Is that Rip?
How's everybody in the Hangout? Yeah, it's Rip.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. What's up with you? What's new with you?
Busy trying to. I'm just trying to get a small call center set up. So my time's been occupied with that. So the wild collecting's kind of been a little muted. But I've been going out like I usually get my salt water for my setup. But about, I think last month, just before Christmas, I was able to go out a little bit farther, and I found seahorses actually. So not around the island, the main island of Luzon, which is the main island of the Philippines where Manila is located, but off of it, there's a lot of, I think in the Philippines here, most people that are in the water are fishermen, like they go fishing, so they don't really care about the coastline, nothing to catch there for them to eat. So, and that's where the seahorses would be. So they're relatively relatively untouched. If what destroys the seahorse, what I found here in the Philippines, what destroys the seahorse habitat is runoff. So, example, the wastewater from the homes, people's homes, is not processed before it's just dumped into the ocean. So that's the most harmful. So where the population is low, it's not, you know, the environment is not really so affected.
Right. No,
so it's preserved.
Well, no, I completely agree, and that's one of the things that, you know, I noticed in researching this topic is that in most areas it's not like collection anymore. It's definitely habitat and problems. What would you do? You have any thoughts on that, like at all?
Well, the only thing that could, you mean to try to ameliorate the situation?
Right.
Oh, you have to understand the culture here in the Philippines. It's based on money. The Philippines is a third world country that is very poor, and most of the people here are poor. There are some people that are not poor, of course, but some people are well off. But in terms of, I run an animal shelter here, so I also run an animal shelter. But in terms of caring about, it's the least of their worries. They're worried about putting food in their mouth, and they don't really care about the environment. And there's no money to be for the environment, so they don't care about that. It's a haphazard. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, either. And it's not easy to, you know, it's so important, but when it comes to words and actions are very different. Like, you know, I'm involved with the government here, so I think my opinion has a little bit of weight,
I mean, I'm listening, I'm intrigued, I agree, unfortunately. And I want you to stick around. I'm going to go ahead and ask you if there's anything else that you wanted to, you know, share on the live stream, and then, but I want you to stick around because I want to talk to you afterwards. But go ahead.
No problem. I'll stick around. I wanted to tell you, like, did your other guest leave? Oh no, he's still here. I see him. Okay.
I'm still hanging out.
How you doing, by the way? Nice to meet you.
Thanks.
So when I was in Canada, I used to live in Montreal, and when I was in Canada, I had started my own coral farm, and I was pretty good for the first 2 years, and the third year, the IT portion of I'm a network engineer, by the way, so the IT portion of my business was making more money. So I slowed down with the coral farm, but and I eventually closed it, and I moved to the Philippines. But I wanted to say, like, the way I started off my business, I didn't start with coral. I actually started with phytoplankton. I started with rotifers. I eventually moved up with brine shrimp. And I got to breeding mysis. I actually got to breeding mysis shrimp. So if you are having trouble if you're having trouble getting traction with your business, I've been there, and the way I did it was I gave it away in the beginning, and I'm just, you know, I'm not going to tell you exactly what I did because it's long and boring. But the short end of it is that basically I made it very easy for stores to carry my product when I was starting out by, if they didn't pay attention to me, I basically gave them some. I bugged the hell out of them. I'd be present, not bug, but maybe bug is a word that I felt I was doing, but I'd be present, and I made sure they saw me, the retail stores that I wanted to sell to. And when they didn't want to buy my product, I'd actually go and give them a bottle. you know. So you don't give it all away. I wouldn't say give it all away, but you let them have the product in the store, and what it does is it creates a good working environment. And then they in turn gave me, in most stores, I had 25% off because I was someone that was giving them product, and when I went in to buy stuff from them, they, I got my own discount. So it was kind of a two-way. Not all stores gave me 25%, like, but there was a two-way. It wasn't only one way where I was kind of getting something back. I wouldn't say it was completely one way, and it also allowed me to start off.
Well,
and then,
that I was gonna.
go ahead.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but that's excellent advice for someone starting a new business. But with Ray, he was already a business, and with seahorses, it's really hard to like give them away. I mean, you couldn't. I think for Ray, and when I was asking him about the demand, what I meant was, I think that Canadian hobbyists are not as interested in seahorses currently. Is what I was asking.
They're not because they don't know how to care for them properly to keep them alive in a sustainable, let's use that word, a long term. So what would have to be done is you'd almost have to give the setup away with the seahorses. Like you'd have to have the setup. Not give, but you'd have to, there'd have to be a kind of standard setup, which could be maybe portable. Like you'd have to have a small acrylic tank or a small acrylic creature setup. Like a small acrylic. They sell some plastic bins or something. I'm missing the word right now.
I've seen a couple of places try that, and it's again, everything you're saying are terrific ideas. I just think that with seahorses, really seriously, a customer has to want seahorses, if that makes sense. Selling them on buying seahorses is typically not going to work out because then they won't care for them like they're supposed to. So providing them, like I know there was a situation where I can't think of the company. If anybody's watching, feel free to mention it. But there was a company that set up a dwarf seahorse setup, all in one. I think they did it with coral and clowns too. And it was like this all-in-one small little tank where you could just, everything you needed, and it was perfect. But it wasn't perfect because those small tanks require more maintenance, and somebody, was putting little dwarf seahorses on their desk, and they wouldn't live, because they need more than that. Dwarfs need, in my opinion, dwarf seahorses need more than, the bigger species. So, and I'm not trying to at all argue with you because you're giving terrific advice. I just think for Ray, personally, I think the answer is that Kelly get off her butt and finish this website with all of these terrific guides on caring for seahorses so that more people are interested in keeping them, and those out there that don't know how, that want to, have a resource so that they will buy. There's my answer.
Well, briefly, I'd reply to that by saying this. When you start an endeavor, you have to be serious.
Right.
You have to be there, and the people that deal with you have to know that you're going to be there tomorrow. You're not going to change your mind, or you're not going to give up, or you're not going to stop. Like the message that you send has to be like very, very solid. Like, I'm in this, I'm not getting out. This is what I'm doing, and I'm not going to change my mind tomorrow. I'm not going to get depressed, or I'm not going to get emotional in terms of what I'm doing, and then get frustrated and then stop myself. So they have to know, first of all, that you're there. Second of all, there has to be some kind of, maybe I'm not giving good examples, but there has to be some kind of product that you sell that the people can take the seahorse home and have it in that product, okay? And I leave it open like that purposely leave it open because I want to make the point. I'm not trying to get into the details of the setup.
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be something that if they want to buy seahorses, make it easy for them, and just take the product home. And whether there's an add-on to keep them alive, like a RO system, that auto top-off, or mini RO system top-off, or whatever it ends up being.
Yeah, stop giving these ideas away. They're already in my head.
You know,
Go ahead.
So there has to be something that the hobbyist can, if the environment is different than a reef setup, slightly different than a reef setup, the hobbyist has to be able to take that home, set it up at their place, and it has to be sustainable. So that has to exist, okay? Mm-hmm. And you have to develop that idea, and that takes time. So
sure.
if you want to have a seahorse market, or want to develop the market, you would most likely have to get together with people that are like-minded, and now you can do it on YouTube, and have one breeder in every province, or one breeder in every major city in every province.
Well, as much as time out, because as much as I absolutely appreciate your advice, and I will take what you said originally, because I'm personally someone who got up here and said I was going to do these things and then had a meltdown and didn't do them. But that's why I have not full-fledged released this website, is because your advice is right on, and I don't want you giving it away, because that's actually what I've been doing, is connecting with like-minded people, breeders, people that supply certain products, to set up a one-stop seahorse shop where someone could come to my website and learn how to care for seahorses, buy the seahorses, buy the equipment, buy what they need, checklists, done, sustainable, yada. I mean, and I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm saying that's exactly what I'm trying to do, and you're absolutely right that someone has to be serious about it and not, just getting up on YouTube and talking. And so that's why you haven't seen it yet, is because of the fact that I'm trying to make it a true business. Like I actually applied and am now a certified, so anyways, I don't want to give away all the details, but your advice is absolutely good. Absolutely good, but it's what I'm doing.
That's how businesses get developed. Like before I even got into coral,
Mm-hmm.
I was selling freshwater plants.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got to be known, because people won't buy from you if they don't know you. The stores, if they don't really know who you are or something, they're like, some want to give you a chance because it's, we're all in the hobby and we were all hobbyists at one point.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it's a business. It has to make money. So unfortunately, that's the world we live in.
Yes.
So,
I do have one question for you kind of about that, though. If you were, let's put yourself in the opposite position. Say that you are the breeder, because I've heard this, and I'm just curious about your thoughts on this, because I've heard this from several breeders. If you are the breeder and you're selling to stores, and it's not that, let's say it's not Ray's problem, it's not that there aren't hobbyists out there to buy it, or there aren't stores out there to buy it. Let's say it's just that you particularly know that the stores are not keeping them in the way that will be sustainable. What would you do about that?
So you have to provide that's what I'm saying. You have to provide, well, if you want to develop the market, you will have to, if that's the case, unfortunately, you will have to provide a stand and an aquarium that the store is willing to maintain, and then put your seahorses in there.
I mean, that's an interesting thought. I'll pass it on. It wasn't my question, but that's an interesting way of looking at it. That would cost a lot.
What did you mean then? I didn't understand.
You didn't. You answered the question perfectly. I'm just thinking that would be a lot. For instance,
No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
Yes, it
Actually,
would.
it wouldn't.
If you're talking about, and I definitely don't want to argue, but I'm just saying, if you're a small time local breeder, and I'm not talking about myself, I'm talking about small time local breeders that I know that are dealing with stores, because that's that, obviously selling to hobbyists is good, but selling to stores is where the business really comes in. You're selling to stores and you know that the stores are throwing the seahorses into a tank that's mixed with all of these other fish, and we aren't going to get into that, but I'm just saying they're not being kept in the conditions that they would be kept in a breeder's facility. That
Understood.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're in that position as a small time hobbyist breeder, or a not a Dan, not an Alyssa. I'm talking about a
But
small time a Kelly,
how
but
much
not
would
Kelly.
how much would a 30-gallon tank with a metal stand, a used, something you can find used on Craigslist, like, and your lights and your filtration cost you?
No, you're right on that
Simple.
end, but I just think actually the hobbyists that asked the question, what the answer that they came up with, instead of setting things up for the store, and putting themselves out there in hopes that things would work out in a condition that they are not present in, what they did is they educated the store, and it ended up working out. I was just curious how you.
Yeah. If you can do that, then that's the preferred. But if the store can't accommodate, if the store's open to assisting, like if the store is open to seahorses and they'd like to carry that, but they don't know how, or they're not, they don't have they're a big chain, so they don't have the flexibility to give you a tank, or then that's what would have to be done. I'm just being logical. I'm not pushing an idea.
Oh no, and I appreciate. Please don't think that I do not absolutely appreciate your opinions and advice. That's what I like about this, is that we can go back and forth, and I gain things from listening, and you know what I mean, and the viewers gain things from listening. So it's a win all around. I don't think you have a bad idea. It's a good idea. If I were in a situation like that where I was big enough that I could set up the situation as I saw fit in the stores, I would, you know what I mean? And so I was just curious. It wasn't even me. It really was someone else. But anyhow, you know what? On that note, I really want to talk to you offline really quick. So I am, and I know we kind of got carried away on the sidetrack. I'm going to have you on as a guest one of these times, Rip, so that you can really share what you're about. And I really want to hear about the animal shelter live, and I want to hear about the things you're doing in the Philippines live. So we're going to have you on as a guest maybe next week if you're free. But either way, I'm going to stop the live stream for tonight so that I can talk to you on the side. So with my empty glass, I will say Happy Wine Wednesday, all. Hope your reef tanks and your seahorse tanks are doing fabulously. We'll pick this up again next week and maybe even have a guest. Ray, and Rip, do you want to say goodbye?
Okay.
You wanted me to hang out, right?
Yes, I meant to the audience.
Oh, okay. Sorry, yeah, okay, so everybody, later.
Bye, audience, is what we're saying. All right, Happy Wing Wednesday, all.
By the way, Rip, I used to sell seahorses to Montreal.